Wow, wow, wow.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. So people are joining. This is wonderful.
Day 2. The hair is up, Hans, huh? Tied back.
Going for it. What do you think of my new nuance sign? It's cool, right?
I like it. I like it.
Very cool.
It turned out bigger than we expected, so we had to put it all the way in the back. It's massive. Let's see. So we're at 37. I'm expecting about 80 people. We just had about 80 people in the other session, so it should be good
Awesome.
fun. So
Where is Baby Zio?
Zeal's at home. He's watching the live stream. You can wave at him.
We needed him for our session. I thought he was running it.
He's been pretty loud the past few days. I don't think you want him there now. Let's see. Let's wait a few more minutes. It feels like everybody's doing like their little coffee run in between sessions, and then it's a few minutes, and God, we're at 40 now. Come on, everybody.
Hans, you should have like a resident DJ for these, right? Playing.
Well, yesterday I had different settings, and I could play music and throw in videos and stuff. I had like a whole setup, but for these workshops, we don't have that. Kind of disappointed. Yeah,
I know.
I was really feeling it yesterday. I felt
we have in our like biweekly, like our company all hands, we use a different. I don't know, it's called. What's that? I forgot the name of the platform that we use, but you can do like intro and outro songs, and you can upload them, and yeah, we have fun with it.
So it's like a party, son.
It's a party. Nice. Yeah, Sam on my team, he is like the resident DJ. It's between him or a head of legal. They both are. They both have some serious chops, so it's fun.
That's cool. That's very inspiring. No, I spend my day doing dad jokes here on the stream, and they've told me to stop it because I've done too many of them. So I had a whole list. That's how I was killing most.
I think you should. I don't think I think you should keep going.
Trust me, we're done. They even canceled my audio. Oh, don't stop. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, I got one supporter. Yeah.
Cool.
That's 40. Oh, we're here for the jokes. No, you're here for Voiceflow. Our friends from Voiceflow. It's the best design, prototyping, collaboration tool in the universe.
And we didn't pay him to say that.
Yeah. No, they didn't. Of course not. And it's true. I have not found a better tool outside of Earth, like in the entire universe. So far, this is the only.
We appreciate you, Hans.
Let's see. Yeah, I would say let's just kick it off. I think more people will join in the next few minutes if you do your slow intro, and I'll check in like at the end of the session and say hello. And then when you see me appear, it's kind of time to wrap up.
No worries. Right.
Enjoy, everybody.
All right. Thank you, Hans. Hi, everybody. Welcome. Go easy on us. This is Zoran, my first time speaking at CD Festival, and we're also new Flowsters, recently joined the Voiceflow team, so super excited to be here. My name is Tar Panu. I'm the VP of Marketing at Voiceflow, and then I'm here with my colleague.
I'm Zoran Slamkov. I'm the product manager for the platform team at Voiceflow.
Yes, awesome. And so we're really thrilled to be here, and a big thank you to the CD Festival and all of you guys. And actually, it's been great getting to meet some of you and actually had conversations with you prior to this. So a lot of, I think, the big focus of today, as you guys can see, is how to launch great assistance, amazing assistance faster. A lot of enterprise teams we talk to, speed is a priority, right? How do we get our products out to market faster without compromising the quality? And a lot of that is done and seen through a much better team collaborative workflow. So we've got a few slides. We're going to go into a demo. We're not just going to tell, we're going to show. And actually, because I know you guys have had a jam-packed day and a half so far, and we know people may be multitasking, I'm actually going to pop in a Notion doc here in the chat. And actually, we are going to do an interactive challenge, and we invite all of you guys to participate, not just we can talk more about that later in the session, but it'll be open until the end of next week. So I'm just going to pop that in there. Hopefully everyone can view it, but with that, maybe we can get started, Zoran. So,
and just when you get access to that Notion doc, you will see a link to join a enterprise workspace on Voiceflow. So go ahead and do that. Once you're in the Voiceflow platform, stop there. We can talk a little bit more about instructions when we get into the demo portion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So big thing, right? A big theme you guys have seen, and some great conversations yesterday from a lot of different of the keynote speakers. But I think when we think about conversational AI products and creating amazing assistants and like the experience, whether that's through voice or through chat, it's really about focusing on the consumer outcome, right? How do we get them? How do we help solve that particular problem or accomplish that particular task? And when we think about what's required to create these amazing experiences, it requires a workflow and a tooling that can support not only complex conversations, so going away and moving away from just that simple FAQ bot experience. A lot of that was talked about yesterday. How do we truly make those conversational and user-driven? We also talked about, user-centric design. Is the experience actually useful and enjoyable? And so that's why we're seeing businesses and teams that are focusing on testing early and often with real consumers and stakeholders is paramount in delivering a great assistant experience. Third is personalization. So how can you deliver richer, more valuable interactions by really engaging that consumer, whether that be a repeat customer or a fallback kind of customer, a frequent customer. There's so many different ways to apply personalization that really adds that level of human touch to the experience. Fourth is omni-channel, right? A big theme that we've heard so far through just our own customer base, but then also throughout this event and through CDI is omni-channel. So really about meeting consumers where they are. So whether that they start over the phone, on mobile, on voice, they enter via your assistant or chatbot via web, or on mobile, it needs to all be able to tick and tie together. And a great, interesting thing that we thought about conversation design and speaking with a lot of different conversation design leads is the way that they design for voice and for chat is often different, which I thought was very interesting. So that's something we definitely want to dive, or hopefully can continue the conversation even after the session to learn more about that. I thought that was a very interesting topic. And last but not least, a big focus is around, how do we get to market faster? That speed seems to be the number one theme and problem, or that a lot of enterprises are trying to solve for, but also ensuring that they're not compromising on quality, right? So not just launching it and getting it out the door, but it's all about one and done is never enough. Like teams need to be able to keep pace with consumer expectations and business demand. So testing early and often is really critical. And I think the way we see, we see a lot of, in speaking with a lot of enterprise conversational AI teams, and just even in working with our own set of customers, we often find that they are challenged, right? Either, typical, often you see this kind of throwing it over the fence, right? So a lot of teams that are still operating, unfortunately, in that kind of silo, especially when it comes to design and working with engineering and development. And even then, you think about the entire conversational AI team. What does that mean for product, for that bot trainer, for the data science, cog ops, like you name it? Teams still seem to be operating and in that type of siloed process. And then also becomes really difficult when, project data and key components, whether that's leveraging NLU data, the kind of certain integrations, designers needing to know what's technically feasible earlier before they begin that. But we often see that a lot of project data is still scattered across many, many sources, which makes collaboration really hard. So I don't know, Zoran, if you have anything else to share here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, velocity is definitely one piece of criteria. We're trying to get customers to market sooner, but taking a step back and understanding, what makes a great conversational assistant. What we've learned over time as the specializations of like conversational AI start emerging, that all of these people are really important in building an assistive conversational assistant. And so what's happening with current workflows today, as Tara was mentioning, is everyone's siloed. Everyone's doing their work independent of each other. And then especially on the design side, they're throwing it over the fence to engineering, and they're effectively rebuilding exactly what the designers just did. but with higher fidelity and actually connecting with all the integrations and all the context that makes these experiences so helpful. So I think what we're really trying to, discover here is that in order to achieve velocity, you need the right people working on the right problems together at the same time. So you remove this duplication of effort, and you also remove these inefficiencies that are living in some of these enterprise workflows today.
Awesome. And so I think the way we start to see it and working with and we want to be able to bring some examples of some of our own enterprise clients and how these teams are starting to think about it and really re-architecting what this new way and new approach is going to look like. And a lot of that stemmed through, is collaboration. And I think aligning from the very beginning on scope and what is a problem that they're trying to solve with that assistant cannot be overlooked, right? So that's like the very beginning of it, is really identifying what that problem is. And then we start to see across the entire life cycle, from design, prototype, training, testing, we put, handoff for launching, and then we put optimize, right? Because it's never, again, one and done. It's constantly iterative as you build. So I think, when we first look at that first piece, right, of the design, I think the common thing that we always see is a lot of designers don't necessarily know what's technically feasible. Some examples are that, prior to, folks that are earlier in their journey are saying, hey, we design, but we have no idea what actually goes live until we actually see it or test it. If we happen to be a customer of their brand, whether that's like a banking app or things like that. So I think for us, knowing what's technically feasible earlier on and where developers can really help add value, again, kind of creating that standardization in the beginning is really critical. And a great example of this is, as we started to dive in a little bit deeper, one piece of, I think, part of the process, one of our investment banking clients actually went from, what used to take them about 8 weeks to get actual design review approval with their stakeholders, now was able to be reduced to 2 weeks, because that they were able to get a lot of those, critical pieces of information from their developers and engineering teams earlier. So that way it actually created a lot more efficiency and getting actual approvals out the door quicker and at a higher rate. So I thought that was also, as we also start to think about what are the key metrics to start to track, a lot of it is, quantitative as well as qualitative, but these are just should hopefully give you some inspiration to also think back at your own design process and how long is it typically taking you every step of the way. And this is just an example of an improvement made by one of our other clients. Another one is we go into prototyping, right? I think being able to show what that live experience is earlier, especially to stakeholders. A big tip we get from some of our clients is that when you're, as a designer, when you're talking to your business stakeholders or your product owners or people in customer experience, they don't need to almost see what's under the hood. They really care about what, something that is somewhat simulating that live experience, because they themselves, all of us are consumers and can act on behalf of our clients and really test out the process. So sort of leveraging live prototyping that actually simulates a real experience and using that as part of the review, actually starting there, was a really great tip we heard from a lot of some of our conversation designer clients. Seemed to be really helpful. And in this case, BMW was able to actually reduce the time it took for them to manually create some of these. And actually, I think the impact of this, again, is all the right leading indicators to get to market faster by leveraging live prototypes. And then, the third area we see a lot around is training. I know we talked, there were some sessions yesterday around data-driven design and leveraging the NLU. A big area that we see, of spotting, areas for improvement earlier in the process before it gets handed off to development or actually is going to be launched, is by testing and designing with that real NLU data. It actually helps, everything from, we see here increase in utterance success rates prior to handoff. Not only does it maybe help catch some mistakes, but I think most importantly, other areas for improvement. So by involving many other people, again, collaborating with other stakeholders beyond just maybe that individual design team, it actually helps you reap the benefits, I think, earlier in the process, because you're able to think about different ways to optimize the experience, or think about different ways a consumer may interact with the assistant, and then you can feed that back into your design process.
Yeah, and I think it's also just important that a lot of the conversational assistants that are getting built out today, the intent recognition, the utterances, the training data that you're using to build out your NLU model is so tightly coupled with your actual dialogue design. And so making sure that you have the opportunity of testing this in real time with that prototyping layer in a single tool allows you a lot more velocity as well in getting to market, and making sure that the training data that you've built, which is going to be related to your designs, is going to perform exactly the way you expect once it gets into customers' hands.
Awesome. And again, too, rightfully, not only just being able to simulate and interact with something that resembles a real experience, but then actually a lot of, I think, talks around how do you scale user testing, and then how does that go beyond just individual groups and done in a silo, but actually done in a way where business stakeholders, even a chance to leverage focus groups and actual live customers and bring them into the process as well, is also going to help with that. And to be able to create that scalability. And at the end of the day, you can see here, right, just another example of, by doing this and kind of really focusing on this part of the process, at the end of the day, another leading indicator to how they can release features, in this case for Home Depot, features of their IVR system 2 times as fast, right? And I think getting to the market is paramount. And then second to last, right, again, just another example, right, thinking about delivery time when all these are done, I think, in unison, and you see collaboration across all stakeholders from the very beginning, it ultimately helps lead to that ultimate metric that we're starting to see from product around, getting to market faster, product delivery time. And then lastly, I think it's never done, right? You want to constantly look to optimize. And by doing this, and I think having a big tip is having a standard brief across that's well understood around, these are the problems that we're kind of solving. Here are the various ways people can fall off the path, they can get back on the path. And when you start to actually put that out in the wild and people are actually interacting with it, the feedback that you're getting, how do you then incorporate that and really try and test the process that you've just built? So again, just some great examples of, I think efficiencies, time savings. So you're actually looking at what's the next way that we can actually proactively address our assistant and actually create maybe features to surprise and delight, as opposed to always having to be reactive, like you think about any product release. And then this is just another great example of, by, with Woolies, one of our clients, by actually going through this journey and really reorienting the entire process, they were actually able to add more team members to it across different parts of the conversational AI team, which is fantastic. It's kind of showing those early indicators that people are, when rally in the beginning around this, and everyone feels like there's a value add, right, to be recognized. And so this is great, right? The more team members, the better. So I don't know, Zoran, if you have anything else here.
Yeah, I think, when you get to this stage, you're hoping all those building blocks that happened before it were in the right place in order for you to optimize. And so I think what we find with a lot of organizations is that when they get to that optimized phase, what they're fixing is effectively what they wanted to build in the first place. But because of bad communication, because of bad handoff and workflows, they're having to go back to this at the final stage, where they want to actually be improving, they want to be evolving, they don't want to be rehashing previous issues that occurred during the workflow that's available today. So I think what we're going to show today is, in the demo portion, how do we fix that? How do we get more people involved? And how do we make sure that the workflow is conducive of a team that is coming from multiple specialties, multiple technical backgrounds, and how do you build on one canvas?
All right, let's stop sharing slides and let's just get into it, Zoran. So why don't I stop sharing and let you get on in?
Sounds good. So let me share my screen. Okay, perfect. So again, that Notion doc that Tara just shared inside of the chat there, feel free to open that up. There should be an invite link inside of there. And when you select that invite link, you should get access to this Voiceflow CDI Festival Workshop workspace. And this is going to be on an enterprise trial, which is great for 11 days. That means you get all of our best and greatest features on our best plan. And as part of that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the competition later. But what I want you to do once you get access to this and you see all the projects, on the left-hand side here, we have some template projects. So feel free and run over to one of these projects, whichever one sounds the most interesting to you. Select this little ellipsis button and then duplicate the project. Once you've duplicated the project, you can now start, name it whatever you want, and you can start building some assistance for yourself as this goes. So as one point of this, we were trying to decide, Tara and I, before this session today, what would be the best use case to demo on this call. So we were thinking, the usual candidates like a banking assistant or an e-commerce assistant. But knowing that everyone on this call is coming from far and wide, from different industries, different use cases, we were thinking about, what's a cool little demo that we could show. And we ended up opting for a Ask Ruth Bader Ginsburg chatbot. And so this is what we're going to be demoing today. And as part of this, we're going to be showing some more cool advanced functionality that you can leverage and think about from an organizational capacity about where do the right people get involved in this process and how can they leverage the Voiceflow tool to help, again, increase their velocity in going to market. So what I'll do just to kick this off is to show the demo because that's going to give you a lot of context about what this chatbot does. And then we can go into a little bit more about the minutiae of the design and then start offering some best practices and some tips and tricks for improving what I have on the screen today. So let's go ahead and I'm going to just run the prototype here. Run test. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg is asking me to ask a question, a yes or no question. So I'm going to just ask, are we having fun? And the verdict is in. Yes, we are having fun. And specifically, tonight we're in a very interesting setting. The building is beautiful and we're in the Great Hall of the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And I always think that's an appropriate thing to do here. So, Ruth has definitely taken this on a track that is outside of this scope of what we're trying to do here. But let's ask her another question and say, is the CDI Festival the best? The verdict is in. We get a yes. I can tell you it certainly has been a wonderful experience for me. I won't keep going. That's a long paragraph. But what is happening behind the scenes here is that we're integrating into not a Voiceflow product. It's actually a third party who have built a Ruth Bader Ginsburg AI. And we're using that to get us the answers, very similar to like a GPT-3 implementation. And this is going to effectively showcase the way of connecting into other services. And we can talk more about how to actually enable these experiences further as we go through the design. Now, what I'm going to do now is go back to the design itself. And let's start at the beginning. What's happening here? And I will say the design that I've built out currently is how a lot of customers initially think about building the design, in that it's all on one layer. So all of their blocks, the technical blocks, the advanced blocks, all their conversational logic lives on the same topic in the same spot. And that is what most customers are used to, because if they're coming from a tool like Miro or Visio, then it's very similar in that they have one canvas, they have to put everything on that canvas, and there's not that clear separation of concerns or separation of which parts of this dialogue tree are the most interesting to certain people who are collaborating on this. So one thing that I will point out is that we are going to improve this as we go, and all those improvements are going to be available inside the workspace for your team to grab and start using for yourself as a template. So in the beginning of this conversation here, I just have a simple welcome message. I'm got some screenshots that I retrieved from the Ruth Bader Ginsburg AI channel. And then down here, I've got a very simple capture step, which is effectively looking for the question asked by the user. One other thing that I've got here is this no reply counter. So what I want to do, and I didn't show this in the demo, but I will show it later, is that if a user isn't responding within a specific amount of time, in this case, I've set it to 12 seconds, we're going to effectively, you can see here, 12-second delay before a no reply response. If they don't say anything, I'm going to increment that counter by 1. And the second that it hits 2, I'm going to end the conversation. But if the user does ask a question, I'm going to go ahead to this API request block. I'm going to ping that URL, and then I'm going to pass in the question that was made by the user. So you can see here, I'm capturing the user reply, I'm saving it into the variable question, and then I'm passing in the question into the body of this API request. And then it's going to return to me the answer to that question and the verdict. So I'm going to be using those variables later in the conversation as well. If that API fails, I do want to just make sure there's sort of like a catch for it. And I'm going to say something went wrong. Let's try that again later. Otherwise, assuming that it went well, I'm looking for a verdict. And so that verdict is going to be passed over from that API response. Depending on what it is, the yes, no, maybe, I'm going to go down that route and I'm going to show the answer to the user. Finally, I'm going to ask if there's another question. So we wanted to be a little bit advanced with this specific implementation. Typically, you just have a button, and in this case, I'm asking, do you have another question? You have a yes or a no. But we wanted to show how you could utilize a custom code step. So if I open this up, you can see on the right-hand side here, I've got this yes variable and this no variable. And those variables have a number of different responses. And so what's effectively happening in here is that I'm going to randomly choose one of these responses and have that as my button label. And so this is going to make the conversation feel a little bit more personalized, a little bit more unique to the user. It's not going to be as, on the guardrails. And so this is like a cool way that you could theoretically use the custom code step in order to achieve that outcome. And then finally here, you can see that if the user says yes, another question, great, we're going to continue the conversation. Otherwise, if they say no, we're going to say bye and stop the conversation there. And then finally, if there's a no match, we're going to do a set step, which is setting the question to the last utterance. And then we'll run through the experience again. So this is effectively the user asking a completely new question. They don't answer yes or no. They just ask the question right away. So then we want to send that back over to our API call and run it through the same process.
So Zoran, could you walk through how can, by seeing this is showing kind of a project that's already been created. So just in going through sort of the workflow steps, how can designers and developers, I think, what are the steps like that they would get started with here? Like what are some tips, right? Just kind of seeing some of the logic that's here on the canvas. What are some like effective ways, like what should designers ask of developers and vice versa here?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first step is always trying to understand the design language that you're building all of these conversations around. So we've included some pro tips inside of this design here. The first one is rename your blocks to make sure that your project is easier to read. To do that, you only have to double tap on the block's title. So you can see here, as I go throughout my experience, all of my blocks with the associated steps have clear and color-coded titles. And so all of this is going to give anybody, designers or developers accessing this, a really good understanding about what's going on here, how are these pieces connected, and what is some of that functionality that is replicated across the experience. So, for example, you can see that A lot of the say messages where we're sending an image or we're asking the user a question are highlighted in green. And then a lot of the answers are highlighted in purple. And as part of that, moving over to our next pro tip here, is that we do recommend that you use colors at your disposal. You effectively build out your own legend or your own key that you can have on the canvas that lets people know, what do the colors mean? How does it work in the grander scheme of things? And that again is going to allow people to navigate the canvas a lot more effectively. And also it's going to contribute to what we're going to talk about in a second, which is the separation of concerns. So some blocks here should be managed by conversation designers or copywriters. And then some of the blocks here might be managed by developers. There's a couple of API blocks here. There's a custom code block here. Depending on how complex these integrations are, depending on how complex you want this bot to be in terms of retrieving information from third-party services or connecting into a knowledge base, then you might want to tag in the relevant members of the team who can help assist you. Having a really good color coordinated key will allow them to quickly visually see where on the canvas they need to be making updates or edits. And that way you can, again, help improve the velocity of you getting this design into market. All right. So I think what we're going to touch on very briefly next is how do we even further separate the concerns here? So I'm sure you saw this API block that is going to make a third-party request. It's going to receive a response. This one that I'm showing isn't the most complicated one in the world, but it can definitely be a lot more complicated. And so for some non-technical designers, this is a little outside of their scope. They don't want to be really messing with this. And so they want to effectively say like, hey, can I take this, put it somewhere else, and then go point my developer to it so that he can make sure that it's updated, that it has all the right data, and that we can use it in our conversation designs going forward. So one thing that I can do is just highlight all of these blocks here. I just need to make sure I remember where the pointing to, the capture step goes there, last utterance goes there, and then we should be good. So what I'm going to do now is create a flow. And I'm just going to connect this back over here before I forget. And then this one over here as well. And let's just make this look a little nicer. I'll bring these over here. I'm going to now rename this flow. And let's call it RBG API. And then let's go quickly change the color of this to a red. And then I'll change the block title as well. And I'll just say, again, RPG API. Now let's go and jump into that flow. So you can see here, those blocks that I just grabbed, they're now all here, away from the main decision structure. And I just need to add one more block here because this isn't sitting in the home flow anymore. Otherwise, we're good. And so now what you can do inside of the layers menu here is that you can see that this more customized advanced functionality is saved into a specific flow. And that flow is called the RBG API. When you're working with your developers and you're collaborating, instead of them going to like the main home flow or one of your topics, trying to navigate everything, figure out where they should be providing some feedback or help, you can instead just point them directly to the flow that is most relevant to them. And so, for example, for whatever reason, this URL changed or what's getting passed into the body changed, any of the headers changed, they can jump in here, update it once, and then anywhere that you're making this API call throughout your design, it's going to be updated. So everything will point to this flow, and that's going to help a lot with the standardization of things and also making sure that, you know, the right people are working on the right parts of the conversation. All right. The next one that I will show here is how do designers sort of also grab their separation of concerns and do that somewhere else as well. So what I have here is, say, for example, this custom code. If you wanted to update this today, like a designer, you would have to go find this custom code block. You would have to play around with this stuff here. But for some individuals, all of this is scary. I don't want to touch it. I just want to update these different variations of what the button says. So today we just hard-coded that directly into this custom code block. But what we might want to do is actually right in the beginning of the conversation, I want to add the options to that block here. So what I'm going to do is just delete that line, bring it into here, bring that one into there. And so if I select this set step, you can see that I've created my own little array here down the bottom. And I'm calling this first step, keep going. Oh, sorry, this first option, keep going. And the second one, I want more. And so this is all saved under the yes variations variable. If I go over to my custom code, let's just forget about that for now, because I'm not going to be using it anymore. I'm going to instead randomly pick one from that array that I captured here. Let's run it, and hopefully it works. Hopefully somewhere along the way, I didn't break this. Okay, let's say, are we having fun? Oh, maybe now. All right, we're getting a harder mark. And you can see here now that button is saying I want more, which is again referencing that initial variable step that I have here. So as a designer, I don't want to be playing around with this custom code block. I want to be doing my work somewhere else. In this case, you can come into here, you can add more variations, you can add more like more potential labels. And so then now that custom code block later is going to reference back to this thing that you've already created in order to choose which version of this label that it should pick from. And so, yeah, that's now you get to leverage this cool little neat feature in the custom code. But as a designer, I don't need to worry about the actual implementation of it. I can play around with the part that I care about the most, which is actually defining the variations of what that label could look like on the button directly inside of a set step.
Hey, Zoran, we have a couple questions in the thread, so I thought I could kind of interject. So maybe you can talk a little bit around real-time kind of collaboration. So does Voiceflow allow co-editing and then versioning? So maybe you can talk about that and then how like our teams are using it today.
For sure, yeah. Voiceflow is first and foremost a collaborative platform. So we want multiple people in the same canvas working together. No one's joining me in the canvas today, but if they were, you would see their little character icons up the top right here. And you would also see their mouses navigating the canvas with me. And so typically when you're collaborating on these things, everyone might be on a call together, on like a screen share, or just some way of communicating with each other. There's other ways of doing that, like commenting. So what I can do here is add a comment, and let's just create. Sorry, let me create a comment here. Oh, there we go. And then I can at Tara. I will say, hey, can we update the graphic here? And then I'll post it. What's going to happen is Tara is now going to receive an email in her inbox. She's going to see the comment that I made when she jumps into the canvas, and then she can either resolve that ticket or we can have a conversation directly related to this block in the canvas. And you can see here now, Tara has joined me on the canvas. We can see her cursor navigating around. And I'm assuming that she might be responding to my comment.
Oh, wait, hold on. I was doing something cheeky.
Okay.
Oops. How do I know? Hold on.
We can come back to that. You let us know when the comments there.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side, you also get to see like the threads and all the comments that are occurring on the canvas as well. So you get like a bird's eye view of any sort of pieces of feedback that are being asked across the conversation design for better collaboration and for better teamwork as it all progresses and as it evolves. I will say as well, like, you know, as people are collaborating, there's obviously like the understanding that everyone can collaborate on the same file, on the same topic, on the same like home flow. But some people, as I mentioned, want to collaborate specifically on a part of the conversation. And so just to harp on the point, that's when I would recommend like capturing some steps, turning it into a flow in the canvas. Sorry, let me go back. And then using these flows as like a way to still collaborate, even though you're not collaborating on the exact same part of the canvas as everybody else.
I commented back. I replied back.
Okay, perfect. Great. Yep. So she called me out. Yes, marketing isn't the pretty feature department. So I can mark that as resolved, and then we're done.
My passive aggressive.
Were there any other questions in the chat?
Specifically around, I guess, like the challenge. So maybe we can, because I think it'd be great to show, you showed the prototyping, you showed, and the ability to be able to do that like in real time at any given point as you're testing, which is a great value add. But maybe you can touch a little bit about kind of other user testing techniques, like either through different personas. And then lastly, maybe touch on one of the questions was, you know, for the folks that are entering the challenge, if they have access, like what is a great way for them to actually like download the file? So maybe you can maybe go through the entire workflow and then touch on how folks can like export and leverage the artifact.
For sure, absolutely. So to answer the first question around user testing, so let's say I'm really happy with my design, it's ready to go, it's time to get this in front of users. And they might not be like production users. These might be, you know, people that are a part of like a user test where you just want to get that early feedback so you can iterate on this before you actually push it to production. So if I go ahead and select the run button here, what I'm going to do is actually create a persona. So I'm going to call this persona a new user. I'm going to start on the start block, and then I'm going to grab the sessions variable, and I'm going to give it a value of, I believe I can give it a value of 0. So if I just open up this modal over here, you can see that I have a persona called new user, and it's setting the sessions to 0. I'm not actually using this much inside of my experience, but what you could do, sorry, if I go back here, is that if you're testing this and you want people to test different versions of your conversation based on specific unique attributes of those people. So you might have a different conversation design if this is a new person who's never talked to your chatbot before, or if this is a returning user, you might want to have a different experience. If this is a current customer, a prospective customer, if they bought this product, this product, this product, in production, you're just going to go get the real data and you're going to route the conversation that way. But in this environment, when you don't have access to that real data, you want dummy data. You want to effectively have an opportunity to mock it in and then use those new mocks as different ways of sending out a prototype to people who can now go share that prototype, copy the link here, and then they should work for me, where now I can start the conversation directly in this prototype modal here, and I can, you know, run the experience exact same way. I'm feeling that if I ask this question one more time, she's going to say no, and she'll be absolutely fed up. And this is, again, you know, with a very specific prototyping user testing lens. Going one step further, what I want to show is that if you're looking at a production use case, this is a very like a sandbox demo of what it could look like integrating this assistant into a live chatbot. So what I've got here is if I go and grab the API key from this menu here, I'm going to just update this, give a different color, and then I'll just say preview HTML. And there you go as well. So this is like a HTML version of that same chatbot. With this widget tool, you could even theoretically like add your own web page behind it, do some like testing internally. I wouldn't say that this specific sandbox widget you would use in a production environment, but you can get very close to what a production assistant would look like. And in this case, with this widget that is available to all of our customers, you can generate the HTML, take it, and try it in your own environment for your own testing purposes. Now, for the challenge itself, what I would recommend is that, inside of here, it looks like some people are already creating copies. There's a couple of ways of doing it. So you can stay inside of this workspace if you want to, and you can just, again, duplicate any one of these projects, name it whatever you want to, and start building yourself. If you don't want to start with the template, you can just create a new project. And so I would recommend selecting either a chat assistant or a voice assistant. No one is probably going to be importing their NLU data into this workspace. I don't recommend it because everyone has access to it. So what you would probably want to do is use the Voiceflow default one, and then you can select the language as well. And then you can create a new project. And now you can start with a completely blank canvas. You can build it all from the ground up. I'm just going to call this file a blank canvas. Play around, test it, do everything you want there. The final thing that you can do is say you want to take this file at the end of the trial because you love what you built, and you want to add it to your own workspace that is unique to you. Then feel free to go into that file that you've created, hit the share button, project content, and download the project file. This will get you a .vf file. And then when you're in your own workspace, just hit this import VF file button. You can select that file that you just downloaded, and then now it will be available on your workspace as well.
Awesome. Another question, actually, Zoran, I was just looking at the chat. So is it possible to connect the prototype to a third-party ASR and test the actual experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. It depends on which NLU you're using. So a lot of our customers, they're using Dialogflow ES for their NLU engine. And so we have a one-click publish feature, project type, sorry. If I go back here, I can just quickly create a chat assistant, Dialogflow English. And then once you're happy with your design, you've built out all of your training data, you can connect this design directly to Dialogflow ES, which is going to publish all the training data you've built inside of Voiceflow into Dialogflow. And then something else you can do is, well, what happens behind the scenes is that Dialogflow creates a webhook to the Voiceflow canvas so that all the content and all the responses you built out here will be referenced in the conversation flow for an ASR or like a voice-based experience or even a chat-based experience. Now, if you're not using Dialogflow ES, what you can also do is leverage our Dialog Manager API. We won't go into too much detail on this call, but feel free to take a look at our developer documentation on that API. There's some examples here about how to connect it into Discord and Telegram and Slack. And you can see effectively how you can map the dialogue management that we provide via this API into any channel of choice. And that can be a production channel as well.
Awesome. See if there's any other, feel free to keep posting the questions. Maybe we can talk a little bit about, and I think just like this challenge, we're really excited. It's actually something we do for all new hires too at Voiceflow. I think all of us have interacted with many assistants in the past. So I think kind of picking either what Zoran just said, like leveraging some of the existing templates. You can also look at that on the website as well for inspiration. Or another way, and we do this actually for all the new hires, is actually going in and experiencing like a live assistant. In our case, it was usually like a food, ordering food or a delivery app, and then picking that kind of flow and not just trying to recreate it into Voiceflow, but like, again, all the elements we talked about earlier, right, around really thinking about the experience and how would you actually improve that. And I think really getting creative with what you can do on the canvas, I think is just something, again, to give you guys that creative freedom, is to go maybe test out another, customer support bot or whatever. And then how would you actually fix that or improve that experience using some of the features that Zoran had mentioned here. So I think when we, and I think as part of this, as well as challenge for all those participating, we will be, and I can send a note out to all the folks that have signed up. So thank you guys for staying with us and for engaging in this challenge. Everybody will be receiving a little something, a little swag. And we'll actually, at the end of July 10th, actually internally kind of go through each of these different projects and I think provide some of the bullets around it, like of what we talked about. And then, there will be a single winner that is awarded and we'll be getting an additional prize. So stay tuned for that. But we'll, since I have everybody's emails, I'll keep everybody in the loop of how you're doing that. Oh, and sorry, I think one tactical thing, Zoran, someone had asked, I had mentioned kind of adding like a link or an example. For example, if you're on your phone experiencing a chat, you can always do like a screen recording. So maybe give ways or like tips of actually how to include, you always can include like external screenshots from like you're taking it off of your screen onto the just simply copying and pasting it onto the canvas. But maybe if you can touch on just briefly how you can include like links, videos, and other mediums onto the canvas for reference.
For sure, absolutely. So we do enable markup on the Voiceflow canvas. So if you right click anywhere on an empty part of the canvas, you can add an image, add text. You would use either or. And so in here, you can include hyperlinks to like examples of what you were drawing inspiration from. You can add images of like the bot that you wanted to rebuild and how you wanted to do it that way. And then you can also use the text block here just to talk about some of your rationale. Why did you build it in this way? And then as Tara mentioned, at the end of this challenge, we will be reviewing it along with some of our other team members in providing recommendations of like, this is what we would have done instead. This is what you could have done. And hopefully that is a nice little artifact and something you can take away from this session today as, improving how you can effectively build out conversation design best practices within your organization today.
Great.
Wow. How was that, everybody? We still have 50 people here. That's really good. Saw lots of engagement, and I heard you talk about swag. That's when I joined the session. I don't know if you know that. I heard the word swag, and I was like, yeah. So did somebody say swag? I'm here. Let's see. No, thank you so much. We're at the end of the hour. Final. I'm after more mugs. I don't know if you caught that yesterday. We were doing a game show, which seemed like a great idea at the time, but I like the stream and the game itself, it didn't sync. So yeah, everybody was like, it was one big mess. So now we got to send mugs around the world to make up for it. But let's see. Good demo. Everybody loves you. That is great. So now people may think, oh, wow, is this it? This is the finale. No, there's more. There is more. And if we now, hey, David's here too. If we now go to the other session, we're going to learn about conversational engineering. So a lot of times you build something really cool in Voiceflow, you export that, and connect it to Dialogflow, yes, or, other platforms. But behind that, there's a whole infrastructure of connecting all the different channels and managing your data and integrating into your backend systems. So we're going to talk about that a little more with Skander, who's from Airy, an open source platform. It's a really nice product. So let's reconvene in the other room. And thank you both so much for being here and sharing your story and inspiring us and showing the product. And it's really cool how every time when you show something, like how quickly the product development moves, and every time there's new cool stuff to see. So thank you.
Thanks for having us, Hans.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.